Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Formula for Week 4 of DFS. We're going to be breaking down our 5 favorite plays, or just some of our favorite plays at every position, and then we're going to build a Millie Maker lineup. We cashed last week, made some last-minute changes because Paris Campbell was going to be a terrible play. Swap that out for some Romeo Dubes, and
Big win.
yeah, we cashed, so we're going to roll that over into this week.
Yes,
See if
sir.
we can see if we can buy ourselves another life here. But all right, let's just get straight into it. These are all, we're speaking from more of like a tournament perspective. Some plays would be a cash game. They're just good overall plays, but we're going to give our 5 favorites. So who wants to go first at the quarterback position for your favorite, expensive quarterback this week?
I'll let Alex go.
Yeah, quarterback this week for me is a spot where I'm targeting some of the lower end guys. I really like the running backs on this slate this weekend. So some of the higher tier guys at QB, I'm actually looking more mid tier. We'll say this though, my high end guy, I guess 6K plus that I'm looking at is Aaron Rodgers. I think that the Patriots defense right now is a little overrated for what they're actually producing. And I think that Rodgers and that young receiving core who's getting healthy now are clicking a little bit more. And we saw that a little bit last week against the Bucks. They could have easily gone up 21-0 in that first or second quarter. So Aaron Rodgers, I think he's 6.3K on DraftKings.
Yep.
Will be my high end target here.
So that's like the most expensive you plan on going?
Yeah. I like the high end running backs quite a bit. So I'm looking here at QB and tight end in particular, at some of the lower end guys. We'll obviously get to that in a bit.
Nick, who's your?
I mean, I had the same exact thought process this week. I'm like, I think, maybe Lamar could be the guy that I would reach for. I just think with the beat up Bills defense right now, we know we lost some of their safeties for the year. So I think they're in a little bit of a vulnerable spot. And if I had to stack, I like Devin Duvernay with the long ball with some of those safeties out. We're going to get some newer guys in there that, they're probably going to make one mistake, and that's, 15 points right there. Duvernay's paying for himself. So I like the Lamar stack, but Millie Maker for me this week, never thought I would see it. But I love this cheap stack that I think is going to push me into the cash no matter what.
Just the stack alone.
The stack alone, just based off the opportunities it opens up in my lineup. I'm going with the Jets here. Zach Wilson bounce back game with a cheap Elijah Moore. We saw it absolutely catch fire at the end of last year when they were both healthy. I know Garrett Wilson's in the mix, but I think this first game out, he's going to go to Elijah Moore, the guy he's comfortable with, he knows. And Zach Wilson, we know he had a big offseason cougar hunting. So I expect him to get out there and continue the rifling.
That Steelers defense is pretty terrible.
What is how much is Zach Wilson?
Or
Zach Wilson's he's like 5,200.
Yeah, he's cheap.
And then Elijah Moore is, I think, 4,800. So you get a pretty good stack for 10K, which is.
If you're stacking, usually you want to run it back with a steal. Like if you think that game is the game stack that wins a millie, usually there's a stealer in there you'd want.
Maybe not.
Yeah. I don't love Najee Harris.
I'd say it's probably like Deontay or someone like that.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson, he gets like 10 targets a game, so he's got upside.
Quite the game to pick to be the game stack that wins the night.
I know,
but
gotta get different.
I think got to be a little unique. I think I'll have some leverage there, and it just
you'll have leverage.
There's a lot of more expensive running backs that I wanted to afford this week, so that allowed me that opportunity.
So you went straight for Lamar's like your favorite expensive guy. Zach Wilson's obviously. I can't imagine anyone cheaper.
Yeah, no, but my mid-tier guy, who I think is also going to have a good week, probably the cheapest. We'll see him all season. The GOAT, Tom Brady. He gets Mike Evans, Chris Godwin back. They're in a must-win spot here. I think it could be a shootout game. So I like him throwing the pigskin, maybe 4 touchdowns, 450 yards. I think is in the cards for potential outcome. So I like him for $6,100.
Not on the slate, but
What do you mean?
he's Sunday Night Football.
Oh man, I pulled up the wrong thing.
All that.
I was just waiting for you to finish so I could say that. Not on the slate, so
I'm gonna pass it off to you, PB.
No one will definitely be playing him.
Leverage, high leverage.
Yeah, a lot of leverage with that. But all right, moving to my favorite. So at the high end, my favorite game of the week here is Baltimore Buffalo. Like there's a lot of low totals this week, and then this one just seems to like
you got to get exposure,
really separate itself. Yeah. And so like Lamar and Josh Allen both, I'm going to have quite a bit of. Lamar might be getting their left tackle back this week. This game could really, really like turn into a complete shootout, and you're going to need pieces of this game. If not, the game stacks of having one of these quarterbacks, one or two receivers, tight ends, and then a guy from the other side. Like, love this game, love both these quarterbacks. So these are my two favorite guys. It's obvious to say that too, like, right. But they're expensive. So like people might try to save down, and I'll just try to save elsewhere. But
you got to get at least some Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stacks going.
Yeah. Or
like you have to have some lineups with that.
And then like I like Lamar Bateman quite a bit. But
every single one of my best ball teams that's in first place still has a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack.
I was going to say that, or
I wish I did a little bit more of it.
Yeah. So those are my two at the high end. Then going to like mid tier, I like Russell Wilson a lot going against the Raiders. I just think people are off the Broncos right now, and this game I could also see, it doesn't have like the greatest total, but it's in like this is in the top 6 like totals, highest totals of the week, and those are the games I typically like to target. And we've seen like some of these, I know typically like those divisional games don't shoot out, but I've seen some of these Denver Vegas games shoot out, and they're playing in the dome in Vegas. Love targeting dome games, so I'm definitely gonna be playing some Russ, Judy, Alberto, Russ, Sutton, Judy, all different combos of that this week. So that's my favorite mid-tier guy. Alex, after Rodgers, who do you like?
Yeah. I was looking a little bit at a game I think could also potentially have a high total in the Seahawks-Lions. Definitely an ugly game, but both really bad defenses. So I think I'd rather have Jared Goff just from a skill standpoint between him and Geno, but I don't hate Geno at 5.4K. Goff is 5.9 if you want to pay up just a tad. But again, a game I think is going to have a lot of points, and you could potentially get some pretty cheap stacks in here that I think could go off. I also think the ugliness of the game is going to keep a decent amount of people away from it. I think you'd obviously probably see a little bit more Lions stacks than you do Seahawks. So if you want to get some leverage there, doing a Geno, DK, or Lockett, running it back with maybe Jamal Williams or a Amon-Ra or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, this was the other two. So I said Russ, Derek Carr was also in that game as someone that I'm targeting. I just want there's 3 games I'm targeting this week. It's Buffalo, Baltimore, the Denver, Vegas, so both quarterbacks, and then finally it's this Detroit, Seattle game, and that's going to be pretty much all my quarterback exposure is those 6 guys. And this Detroit, Seattle game is the second highest total on the slate. Goff, there's a possibility I remove Goff from my player pool if Amon-Ra sits. That he's been battling an injury, and I think he needs Amon-Ra to hit his ceiling. So I will just be playing Geno from that game if Amon-Ra's out. It depends on who Lockett and Metcalf line up with. Like Okuda has been really good on the Lions this year. He's been pretty locked down. So if I find out who he's going to be on this week, I'll just probably play more of the other guy.
Yeah, I think DK will see the most of him.
Yeah, he's been playing more outside. He's a little bit bigger of a guy, so I would expect DK.
I don't think he'll shadow, but I think mostly
you'll see more of Metcalf.
More of him.
Well,
he was a top 5
case,
pick, I think. So
he wasn't good last year, but he's kind of coming to
turned
form.
it around,
coming back.
Yeah.
So those are my 6 quarterbacks of the week, but definitely by far my favorite is Buffalo, Baltimore, as it is probably a lot of people.
Yeah.
All right. Next we have running backs. So, or do you have any other quarterbacks, Alex, or was that all of them?
That was all of them. I may, if I put in a handful of lineups, I may throw a Cowboys stack in there.
Cooper Rush.
Yeah, I do like CeeDee Lamb a lot this week. So,
I love CeeDee this week. We'll get to that.
So why you keep throwing trade offers for him, PB? Every day I wake up, hey, what do you want for CeeDee?
I mean, we saw in that second half what he did, not to jump ahead too far, but again, a fairly cheap stack this week that allows you to get some of these higher end running backs that we'll talk about here in a minute. So
all right.
Potentially some exposure there.
Yep. So moving on to running back, starting at the high end. We'll start with Nick because it's been a second here.
Yeah. Personally, I think Jonathan Taylor and CMC, their names are still carrying them on top of the board here. So with their production of what they've put out this year, I think they're wildly overvalued. Derrick Henry, slate breaker last week. Does he replicate it?
I don't think he was a slate breaker. He started off as one, but then
25 points.
He was pretty good. He did pretty good.
He did good. It just wasn't a slate breaker.
So that leaves me to my favorite running back, Saquon Barkley. They're wearing the old school jerseys this week, so I think that extra swag is going to push him over the 30-point mark in fantasy this week. And he's been crushing it. He's obviously the centerpiece of that offense. Yeah. We saw Sterling Shepard's out for the year. Their pass game's really struggling receivers-wise, so there's not too many options here for that Giants offense against a pretty subpar Bears defense.
Yeah.
So
Bears
I think he's in a good spot.
Is trash.
Yeah. I mean, Roquan's good, but it falls off very hard from there. So I like the spot that he's in. I think he's going to produce and pay for his 8K value with some potential upside to win you this week. So he's my favorite top tier guy.
Alex?
My go-to high-end guy this week is going to be Austin Eckler. We saw Brandon Staley say post-game that they have not been getting him the ball enough and that they're making it a priority going forward. I think that makes a ton of sense given Herbert's injury and trying to take a little bit of the brunt of the work off of him. Eckler's also just an absolute volume monster, catches a ton of passes too. Obviously, Rashawn Slater being out hurts that rush quite a bit, but Houston's the worst run defense in the league. Couple of stats here on them. They've on average allowed over 200 yards a game in the run game, 5.6 yards a carry. But most importantly, obviously DFS, all about volume. They allow the most carries per game at 36 on average for these first 3 games. So I think Eckler's in a great spot against a bad Houston Texans defense.
He's my favorite, number 2.
Yeah, he's also in my top 2 on the high end. Eckler, like last week, all over Montgomery. He goes down, doesn't matter. Khalil Herbert just breaks the slate completely, goes off, and now it's Austin Eckler, going against up that. So I like him, but above Eckler, I will be glad to play Christian McCaffrey at, I don't know. I don't know what his ownership is going to be because I feel like people have been kind of burned because he's always pretty expensive and he hasn't done enough. He still had great games. That's what people love to knock McCaffrey. But let's look at, what he's done in his volume so far. He had almost 30 touches last week. Gets over 100 yards rushing, just doesn't score. Week before that, on 19 touches, he gets almost 130 yards. No touchdown, so he doesn't, break the slate by any means. And then the first week he scores, but he doesn't have he had like 60 something scrimmage yards. And so he hasn't done enough to what we've seen in the past by him, where he's just break slates. He's catching like 9 balls, 100 rushing, 100 receiving, but he's still been one of the best running backs in the entire league through 3 weeks. And I'll be glad against Arizona. He's also faced some very tough defenses. Had the Saints, Browns, and the Giants, which maybe not the Giants, but he's done solid, and I will be glad to go back to him. So yeah, Barkley though, from a cash game perspective, he's a guy probably like just his role is absolutely insane right now, and being what I think is still the best running back in the league. And going against the Bears, like cash games, Saquon. For tournaments, give me more Eckler and McCaffrey. So that's at the high end.
Yeah, I feel like people have been staying away from McCaffrey too because he keeps getting that questionable tag, even though we know he's going to play. Like they said,
he sits out every single Wednesday, and nobody's catching on yet.
Yeah, they said that before the season started. They're like veteran rest day for a guy who like
sat out today, but Thursday, but
same. I mean, it's again like he's
some
going
of
to
these veteran guys. It's like
well, especially a guy like that who's got multiple injuries the past couple of years.
Doesn't need to prove himself anymore.
No.
Yeah. He's still very good. So at mid-tier.
Yeah. So going to the mid-tier guys that I'm looking at, we mentioned a couple of names already, but my favorite 2 mid-tier guys where I'm saying basically 6K to 5K range, Jamal Williams, 6,100. Seahawks
best play of the slate.
Yeah. Seahawks run defense is horrendous. No DeAndre Swift this week, and the Lions have one of the best lines and run games in the league right now. And then the other guy, Khalil Herbert, we talked about him last week going against.
Is Montgomery out?
Yes. Well, listed as questionable, has not practiced all week. So I'm
probably not playing.
I'm going under the assumption right now at recording that he's not playing. Khalil Herbert's 5,700.
Yeah, then he's a great play.
Yeah, and running the ball is about the only thing the Bears can and I guess are choosing to do at this point. 23 completions over 3 weeks for Justin Fields. So, everything's fine. Everything's fine. But yeah, their run game has been still very good. And Herbert's got fresh legs. So assuming David Montgomery is a no-go, I love Herbert here as well. 5,700.
Nick, any mid-tier?
Yeah. I think Dameon Pierce could replicate what he did last week. We know that the Chargers are kind of a run funnel defense. I don't think Davis Mills has the capability to break that, so they're going to need to find another answer pretty quickly. I like his involvement. Either. What's that?
No Joey Bosa either for the
Chargers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's big. We saw him catch a couple passes last week. So I think they're going to get more creative with him as he's kind of settling into the NFL. So he had a big second half last week. So I'm expecting them to, keep going there. I also kind of like sticking to rookie running backs here. Breese Hall, we saw him out-snap Michael Carter finally. I think he's going to start to really come into form here pretty early on in the season. And maybe they lean on him a little bit more with Zach Wilson's first game back. So I like him too for the mid-tier.
Zach Wilson's going to break the slate. Remember?
I know. All right. For the Millie Maker, I put Eckler and Saquon, so I had to go real cheap. Not playing Breece Hall and doing the triple stack there, but I think he's a viable option.
Too many Jets.
I like him better than like Ramondre Stevenson. Like I think Patriots are going to have a bad game. Committee running back, like just don't love it this week against the Packers. And then what do you got? Like, I don't know.
I have a guy down low that we'll get to, but
okay.
But to agree, well, first in the mid tier, Jamal Williams, I think, is the best running back player on the slate. He's been putting up crazy numbers with Swift playing.
Yep.
Now he gets the entire backfield to himself with that O-line against the Seahawks. And if
yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a good play. Absolutely love it. He's going to be on He'll be my highest owned running back. Then James Conner. James Conner going against the Panthers, which I do not think they have a great run defense. He's still getting good volume. Like he's averaging like 5 targets every single game. He, he's getting he got 13 rush attempts last game. He just hasn't, his yards per carry has been atrocious. Like he hasn't been efficient at all, but he still has the role. And, I think he's going to be fairly low owned. So I love him as a pivot off of Jamal Williams in some lineups at that same price point. So I like Connor, but obviously you're playing Jamal Williams in any cash game you have. So those are my 2 mid tier, and then I just have one cheap guy. Alex, did you have a cheap guy?
Yeah, going off of what Nick said with Damian Pierce, I like Rex Burkhead here too. If you're trying to get real cheap at running back, if you need to fill a spot, 4,900 or Naheem, 4,700. Both guys obviously backups, but both are involved in the passing game as well, and they're both playing very bad defenses, run defenses in particular. So I think either of those guys, if you need like a cheap fill-in spot, yeah.
So the cheap guy to play this week is going to be Rashad Penny. And the reason why, so it's been like a 3-headed backfield. It's been like Kenneth Walker, Travis Homer, and Rashad Penny. However, Travis Homer's on IR now. And so against this Detroit defense, which is not good at all, and then Kenneth Walker, who's only had 3 carries last week, and he'll probably play a little bit more on the passing downs, Kenneth Walker, but Rashad Penny got 14 attempts last week. He had the most attempts he's had all season. I think this could be a Penny game. So if Amon-Ra's in, and things like that, he's a great guy. I love to include in like a bring back. So like Goff to Hawkinson, Amon-Ra, bring it back with Penny or something like that. But yeah, I like Penny a lot to save some salary. I think he's a very good play this week. So that'll do it for running backs. Moving on to wide receivers. This is always where, the last week it was Mac Hollins at like 30 something 100 goes for 35 points. Like this is where you find the ceiling plays that just go off, and you try to get these guys as low ownership as possible. Usually it's not good to just play all the chalk at receiver. This is where you want to get different and still have that ceiling. So where are you guys at the high end?
Not too much to pick from, honestly, this week. There's only, 4 or 5 guys above 7K. Pittman's going to see the volume. We know that. I think A.J. Brown could have a big game, but I'm not sure that I love Diggs against Marlon Humphreys, who actually looked like the superstar Marlon Humphreys that we all
I'm talking about Stephon Diggs here.
I know, but I think it could limit him a little bit. Not sure that he's worth the price tag there, but
he is expensive.
I'm playing more Ravens side of the receiving core. Since we talked about needing exposure there, I like Duvernay a lot. Honestly, I'm not too crazy about any of the high-owned wide receivers this week. What do you guys have?
Mentioned it before, CeeDee Lamb. The Commanders DBs are he's not high end, but 6,700. He's up there this week. The Commanders DBs are absolute trash. The Eagles just dismantled them. Amon-Ra and Christian Kirk killed them in prior weeks. And we, like I said before, we saw Cooper Rush and CeeDee kind of get that connection going in the second half against the Giants. I think CeeDee had like 80 yards and a touchdown. That's sick one-hander. But yeah, that's where I'm looking at on the high end here.
Well, okay, so you guys going kind of more mid-range. I mean, I don't have I since I like the Raiders and Buffalo, obviously, or those are like game stacks I have. I like Diggs. Any Josh Allen team I have, which obviously I'm going to be playing quite a bit, I'm going to have Stephon Diggs on that team. And then any Carr team is going to have Adams. So by default, I have to like those two guys. But then I agree with you, Alex. I love Lamb at the mid range against Washington. I won't be having Cooper Rush, but as a one-off play at 6,700, without Dak, like he still is the wide receiver one there. I think Gallup might be back this week, but I mean, 11 targets, 12 targets. Like that's just crazy, crazy volume for receivers. Target share is insane. Hasn't even cracked 100 yards this year yet. I think he could do that against Washington with Cooper Rush. So love CD at the mid range as a one-off play. But I'll go ahead. Who has anything at like the lower mid range to low end?
If we're considering 6K mid range, I got to throw out my boy Amari Cooper, averaging 27 points through the past 2 weeks. Brisket looked pretty good, and I actually have a couple Brisket Amari Cooper stacks in play this week.
Ugh.
I think against the Atlanta defense, I mean, AJ
Terrell.
Good, I don't care. I like him. I'm also playing a lot of Njoku again. So kind of, shout out to the Browns there, but I like Rashad Bateman and Curtis Samuel too, with where they're at price range wise.
Yeah, I like the Bateman call because I'll probably have him on a lot of my Lamar teams. But
it's hard to not play Mark Andrews every week.
Yeah,
I feel like it's just like a guaranteed 30 points.
Lamar is usually a guy too that I like to because he runs the ball so much. Like obviously he threw for a bunch of touchdowns last week, but typically I like to single stack him just because when he reaches his absolute ceiling, it's because he's going like 100 yards rushing for 1 or 2 touchdowns, and maybe throwing for 1 or 2, but it's usually bringing only one pass catcher, either Andrews or someone like Bateman or Duvernay. So typically just single stack Lamar. Don't do the double stack. But Alex, at the mid to low, like below Lamb, who do you like?
Yeah, so we already talked about the rest of the guys I got on here, so I'll just touch on them real quick. I think DK gets the most of Okuda in that game, so I'm gonna be looking at Lockett at 5,900.
Love Lockett.
I have Lockett on my list.
He's got so much value. I think he has 9 catches the past 2 weeks. So
I mean,
I like that.
Gino hasn't looked horrible,
right?
He hasn't looked great. He hasn't been, good.
He's been serviceable. Like he can support receivers.
Yeah. And the Lions defense isn't, other than Okuda, isn't anything really. I mean, they got their D line is decent.
It might be the softest defense he's played.
Yeah. And then on the low end under 5K, I'm looking at some Jets guys, Corey Davis at 4,500 and Elijah Moore at 4,800. With Zach Wilson back, I think that their ceilings go up a little bit from Joe Flacco, and Pittsburgh's defense is pretty banged up. Do we know if Minka is playing?
Not sure.
No.
Yeah, so I think there's a chance he doesn't. He was in concussion protocol post game, another kind of weird one where he played the rest of the game kind of like Tua, and then the NFLPA was like, wait a second. You took a knee to the back of the head from Nick Chubb. You're probably a little bit concussed.
You can't read.
Yeah. So on the low end, I like some Jets receivers. Not too much of them, hopefully, but a little bit of it.
I'm with you guys on Lockett. Obviously, like a lot of my Geno teams gonna have Lockett on there. Lions defense is just butter. So Lockett. DJ Moore is going to be, I really hope he doesn't get ownership because his price tag is so juicy. Not a Baker guy by any means, but I am a DJ Moore guy. I think he's very, very, very good. And he gets to go up against this Arizona team. And he's going to put it together, no matter how bad Baker is, they're going to put it together for some games, but it's been rough. He's had 6 targets, and he's only caught 7 balls this year. It's been rough for him, but I think he could put it together. If he doesn't put it together against Arizona, I don't know what. It's gonna get real dicey with him and ever playing him again. But I think this is a get right spot for DJ Moore, so I like him a lot. And then one more guy I have at the real low end. He's going to be like a cash game staple. Probably have to get different elsewhere in tournaments just because you don't want to play a 4K Richie James. But with Sterling Shepard gone, with Galladay, they don't know what to do with him. Kadarius Toney, who knows if he's back? Like
Good case.
he legit could be he's like the wide receiver one. And when you get a wide receiver one against Chicago at 4K off of just target volume alone, he's a good play. But just like, Matt Collins burned me last week. Like he was like the more chalky guy that I faded, and then he goes crazy as the Raiders wide receiver too. But cash game play him, tournaments probably don't. Just move on to someone else. But that does it for my wide receiver plays. Obviously, if I like Russ, Judy, Sutton, like those guys.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Nope.
All right, moving to tight end, and then we'll get into building a lineup. So, tight end's always a shit show. So it's just like either there's like a cheap guy that just catches a touchdown, and then he's so cheap that it lets you get all the other guys in your lineup, or someone at the high end, one of these elite guys, goes so crazy and separates themselves so much from the position that you absolutely need him. Last week, that was at Mark Andrews.
All season,
it's been him. Yeah, it's been him this season pretty much so far, 3 games in. But I don't know. Is this I like Lamar, obviously, so I'm going to have some Andrews. But Buffalo, I feel like, has been pretty solid against tight ends. I know they're banged up now on their defense, but typically they've been pretty solid against tight ends.
Yeah. I like Dawson Knox too, speaking of Buffalo here. I think he at 3,900, he's the type of guy who you really only need to catch a touchdown. And again, probably the highest scoring game on the slate. Has a decent chance with Humphreys on Diggs, Gabe Davis a little banged up.
And he'll be pretty low on too. Like not many people will play him for some reason. I think it's just because he hasn't done it this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, 3,800 for a guy for the tight end one in Buffalo's offense. Like, give me that.
Yeah. And like you said, obviously at the top end, if you're playing Lamar, you're playing Mark Andrews. I mean, he's essentially wide receiver one.
Yeah, I will have some where I do play Bateman over Andrews just to get different because that's the thing. Most Lamar teams are just going to take Andrews with them. So like if Lamar goes off and Andrews gets like 13 and Bateman catches one of his long ones, then I'm getting different. So I'll kind of split it. But
and then one more guy, last guy I got on here is Tyler Conklin, another Jets play.
Did you mention him last week? I felt like
Uzoma's back, right?
Is he?
I think so.
I didn't.
You should check on that.
No, I don't think he is yet. I think Uzoma is not back.
Okay, thought I saw that.
Yeah, he does get a crazy amount of targets because last week he went for 16. So actually, that was a great call.
Yeah, 7, 8, and 9 targets. Again, against the banged up Pittsburgh defense.
Uzoma's back, but he only had 1 catch last week.
Oh, yeah, he played last week too.
Conklin's.
So Conklin's role.
But one thing I will mention, going from Flacco, who seems like they throw the ball so much, to Wilson, I feel like they didn't throw the ball as much with Wilson. So that's just something to keep an eye on moving forward, seeing how much they pass with Wilson as I did with Flacco.
Yeah. I saw some stat that Elijah Moore's main receiving stuff actually goes down in production.
With Wilson
Flacco.
Yeah.
But maybe they work him into the run game a little bit more, like they were talking about during preseason.
Yeah. So is that all your tight ends, Alex?
Yeah. Those 3 are the ones I'm looking at.
What about you, Nick?
All right, so I got 5 guys in the player pool, not playing anyone else. We already talked about Mark Andrews. I think Kyle Pitts is going to have a good game. We saw him take a step forward last week. I think it continues. I'm not very high on Drake London this week because I think Denzel Ward's one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and they like to shadow big receivers like that with him. So staying away from him, I think Kyle Pitts gets more volume than normal. So I really like him this week. Second guy for $4,500, Dallas Goddard. He's just a safe pick for me. So when I'm, kind of hitting home runs other places, I like Goddard's volume for $4,500. So I'm get his first touchdown last week. See if we could get 2 in a row. Third guy, Chief Njoku. We saw him wide receiver 2 last week. He's an absolute animal, hard to bring down. So under the case that AJ Terrell does lock down Amari Cooper, I do like the play for Njoku here with some increased volume. And shout out to our Colts boy Corey. I like 2,600, super cheap. Jelani Woods. The guy is
You're gonna chase a
mammoth.
2-touchdown Jelani Woods game? Come on, dude.
And they still at 2,600. I think he's obviously a red zone target for that cheap. Seems like a good flyer. If you look below 3K, no one else really impresses me down there. So if you have to get real cheap, I like that as an option.
If you're listening to this, I just want to say, I'm warning you, do not play Jelani Woods. Any lineup you put him in, consider it dead. You will not win anything. So,
well, you would have won a lot last week when you scored 15 points.
Okay, that was last week. And now the game after, when some people are going to chase that, don't be that guy. Like, maybe play him again just 4 weeks from now after he puts up 4-0 straight. Play him, you'll get him at even lower ownership. And you still probably shouldn't pay. Like, can we set like an over-under at 2 fantasy points? And I get the under and you get the over just as a side bet?
Sure.
2 fantasy points.
Sure.
Okay. We can have a little side bet on that.
1 catch, 10 yards.
Yeah, that's 2 points. We can set the over under at.
Okay. Lock it in.
$10. We'll just do a small little side bet.
Sounds good.
All right.
I accept Cash App only.
All right. So now that we've gotten taken care of that, my favorite play is Kyle Pitts. Like, usually one of my favorite plays is someone correlated with a quarterback I'm playing, but Kyle Pitts is going to have like a game that just everyone starts to understand. Like, everyone knows like what he's capable of, but everyone's like, well, he hasn't done it. Like, he's barely scored touchdowns since he's been in the NFL. I think it all comes together. I know it's one.
Crazy.
I think everything comes together this week, and he is the tight end you need to win. So that's my biggest flag plant at tight end this week. So he's my favorite guy at 5K. Hawkinson, I like Seattle's defense, not good. In some of my Goff stacks, as long as Amon-Ra is playing, I like Hawkinson. Last week, he kind of started stepping it up a bit. He scored finally. His volume went down a bit, but he finally got it in the end zone. Knox, we mentioned Josh Allen stacks, Josh Allen, Diggs, Knox, run back with a Baltimore guy. Love that. Evan Ingram. So continuing on from Corey and I's little Jags bet, I think Evan Ingram is scoring this week. The Eagles, like, they do have a pretty solid defense, but it's kind of like in their corners. Like, still, tight ends do pretty well against them. Like, that's how you kind of have attacked the Eagles. And I think besides Logan Thomas last week, but that's a whole different story. Evan Ingram is scoring this week against the Eagles. And I've already said, I think the Jaguars could win this game or keep it close, but I do think Evan Ingram gets in the box this week. And then Alberto is my last one, just in my Russ, like Russ, Judy, Alberto, Russ, Sutton, Alberto.
All of that preseason hype.
Don't want any of it. No Alberto.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind it. His role is kind of come back. He's on. So yeah, it
3K.
He's 3.3.
Yeah.
So
for a guy that's putting up less points than Jelani Woods, you get someone a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, but Alberto is like actually the tight end one. Jelani Woods is still the tight end 2 in the Colts offense. So yeah, I'll play some Alberto. He's not my favorite play by any means, but because I will be playing Russ, gonna have to have some Alberto. So yeah, but Kyle Pitts is the guy this week. That's all that matters.
All right. Well, should we build this lineup or
Yeah,
what?
now we're gonna build our Millie Maker lineup. See if we could take it home. So, um, let's start with like a game stack. That's how I think we should start these. Like, what is the game we all think we like the most, and
I
then
was gonna say I think we all like Eckler, so maybe just throw him in there, and then
no.
we
Let's
can.
start with the game stack so we can see what we can afford.
I mean,
I know, but
we
we all
talked
love
about
Eckler.
Buffalo, Baltimore, Seattle, Detroit,
Yeah.
And well, I only like Denver,
Denver,
Vegas.
Vegas.
So yeah,
I don't hate that game, but the
I
other
like
two are
Lamar.
definitely.
so yeah, I mean, I would lean Allen over Lamar at 100 more, but going against Baltimore's D, but that's just me.
I
Yeah.
think Buffalo's defense just a little beat up still.
Yeah,
That's like the little edge.
I don't
know.
like the stat. Like I like Lamar, but like typically I like pairing Lamar with Andrews, and I just don't like for how expensive Andrews is and his matchup. I don't like the matchup as much. That's why I lean Allen over Lamar. But that's just me. If you
All
like
right.
Lamar more than Allen, Alex will go Lamar.
Ooh.
But I like
choice.
Allen.
I mean, they're the same price, so
Yeah.
if you like I actually like Diggs more than Andrews this week because I'd
But
rather.
I mean, did you
Pitts.
see what the Patriots did against the Ravens? Like, I mean, the
Yeah.
Ravens
No, I know.
defense,
Let's see what a Josh Allen,
Diggs.
Stephon Diggs stack leaves us with, and then we'll go from there. Because we know we
Well,
can get a cheaper Raven stack.
yeah, so we need to get a Raven in here probably. So I would say one of the receivers, so either Bateman or Duvernay.
I like Duvernay if we had to pick.
What's his
quite a
target
bit.
share been like? I know he's done the first 2 weeks.
I mean, the first week he had that like
Not great.
punt
He
return, so like he was a little inflated, but
look at his
besides that, he's been
Nick,
all
but
right.
look at that. Look how many times Lamar threw last week.
He's
Look
got a
how
lot of air yards though.
no, dude, he has 2 targets in each game. 4 is his highest.
Look at Bateman; it's
No,
marginally
Bateman's
better.
way better.
Not last week, but I
I
mean
feel like
that Miami
if
game
this
was such a.
if this game goes crazy, I feel like it's more Bateman that. But if you like, if we really want to go Duvernay, you get what's Tylan Wallace? Has he been getting more work? Like Demarcus Robinson, that's the other guy. Demarcus Robinson's been the one that's kind of been eating at some of this, but still, they don't.
No,
It's just
he's
because they
not.
don't throw. Like Andrews pretty
Yeah, I
much gets a
know.
lot of it, but I don't like his
He's
matchup.
got like 13 targets. Yeah, look at that. 20
That's where
targets.
the ball goes.
Yeah.
That's where the ball goes.
Yeah, but against Buffalo, I really do think Bateman could be getting the ball more. I think Buffalo is going to scheme. Like they're smart. They're going to scheme to take Andrews out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think Bateman
like the
gets like
Duvernay home run ball because I think they're going to have to hit some big plays against the Bills to keep in it. So
okay, my Nick's votes Duvernay. I made Bateman. Alex tiebreaker here.
Let's go Duvernay. Save some cash here.
All right, let's do running back.
we all kind of loved Eckler.
Yeah, we did all like Eckler.
Let's throw him in there.
We're gonna have to. We need to get a second. We need a second cheap running back. Like our stat, we already have 3 guys over 7. Like we have to get a cheap guy. So I would say
All cheap enough. You think?
I don't know if we can get Jamal.
Plug him in.
Right. Let's try.
Plug him in. We all love him too.
We all love both of those running backs. This is where like a Duvernay.
Do you like Pitts, Alex? I think Pitts could have a huge week against the Browns. Like I know my Browns defense, we always stink against tight ends.
I mean, Mariota's going to throw the ball to someone, and if Drake London's getting Denzel Ward all game, I do like Kyle Pitts quite a bit.
Yeah.
Let's get. I think Pitts should be in here.
Okay.
Let's
grab a defense so we see.
Yeah, we're gonna have to
working
get
with on the last
here.
2.
I'm trying to think here.
Honestly, I think the Jets
Josh. So at the cheap end for running back. Oh well, I guess if we do need to take Jamal out, I think we go either Jacobs or Rashad Penny if we need that savings.
Okay.
I don't. Richie James would fit. Oh, he's cheap, but he's just we can't play in a Millie Maker, a really high owned guy that's not that good. So let's look here. What about someone like?
You're looking at receivers right now?
Yeah, because we need to fill that last receiver spot. Like
Dodson's what's he at? I
what
like
about
John Dodson.
Would DJ Moore? I don't know if you know average.
He's pretty expensive.
What about Robbie Anderson against Arizona? Like 4 points.
Or what about Hasta Lavisca?
Huh?
Did you guys see that?
No, we're not playing Lavisca.
Lavisca Chenault scored a touchdown last week, and the Spanish broadcast just had one of the most legendary calls on the play, and they were screaming "Hasta la Visca."
That's hilarious.
It was amazing. I like Dubes or
no, I don't want to chase Dubes.
What about Tolbert? Not Tolbert, Dotson.
No,
not
against
got a lot of targets.
Dallas.
All right.
I lean. These are the ones I think. I think Claypool, Robbie Anderson, Elijah Moore, but
I like Elijah Moore.
Or yeah, those
Zach Wilson bounce back. He was one of my favorite plays this week.
I'm telling you, we're probably gonna have to come.
Yeah,
we're probably gonna have to come off of probably Jamal and get a cheaper running back. So that would be, I think, Jacobs against Denver because he seems to be getting all of it, or Penny against the Lions.
Yeah, I don't hate that Penny call.
And then let's get a defense. Probably have to go. We're gonna go cheap, obviously. If we're paying up at so many spots, let's try to find a low owned defense that has some upside here. Let me see here. So Seahawks, Detroit, no, Tennessee. I don't know. The Jets versus Pittsburgh is.
That's what Nick was saying.
I was like, I don't know if I would go to any of those other teams.
Because the only other one.
You just don't want. I lost I think 2 or 3 of my fantasy games with the Chargers deal last week. It was quite upsetting. They put up negative
the Jets versus the Steelers seems pretty solid, I would say.
4,100 now for the flex.
Not a lot to work with here at this level.
So we have 4,100.
Yeah, not great. Not
Nico
great options.
Collins, maybe.
Ew. Definitely not.
Just saying against. It's that, or
Justin Jefferson right there.
4K Justin Jefferson.
It's that, or we would come off of Pitts, add to our stack, and go Dawson Knox. In that we're just banking on just this game being a track meet, and then we can upgrade a flex. Like that's or coming off of Eckler because we're spending up at quarterback and receiver and going to like Jamal instead of Eckler.
I bet Jamal and Eckler score pretty comparable.
Like if we think Jamal is such a good player that we don't need the save up or spend up to Eckler, just go Jamal.
Let's see what that opens up for us.
We'll open up. Yeah, we'll be able to get a solid final play in. $57. So Khalil Herbert, we could go.
Judy, Herbert, Breese Hall.
I like Judy. Yeah, I mean anyone in here. I still like DJ Moore a lot.
He just has the Baker regression tied to him though. Like I can't get behind it. I love DJ Moore too. Like I was a huge fan of him.
He's
amazing.
And he's just had no quarterback his whole career.
I think he puts it together this week though. I really do. But I just don't know if this lineup.
It's not a matter of him. That's the problem. It's like
I think they'll get it. I think it's just. But let's find like Judy's in a. I like because I like that game.
Yeah.
Khalil Herbert also, I guess if Montgomery's out, he is in a good spot.
Good floor.
Or we get to Bateman, and then instead of Duvernay, we get a different 4K guy. It would be like Nico.
Who's at
Collins.
who's at 4K though?
It would be like Nico Collins. I think it would be yeah. That's like he's like the only reasonable guy at 4K.
Who are these people? Oh my
Yeah,
god.
there's just a bunch of backup running backs.
Oh my god.
So what are we doing here? We gotta wrap this one up.
We gotta make a decision. We can flip it later, but let's lock one
You
in.
want to
right
go
now.
with Herbert if we bank
I
down?
was gonna say Judy, but
I'm fine with either. PB, what do you think?
I mean, I'll go with Khalil. If Montgomery's out, I Khalil. If Montgomery's in, we could swap it to
Yeah.
Judy or something.
Yeah. Let's see what they're saying right now. Non-participant Thursday.
Yeah, I could see him resting.
he's done. And he's not even been that good.
Khalil Herbert honestly fits this offense better than Montgomery. Like,
yeah,
The only thing I don't like was playing two running backs from the same game, which we did, but we will probably adjust this before lock. But
oh yeah,
this is like a good tournament lineup for anyone. Like
this is definitely different.
You have two super low owned receiver plays in a game stack that'll be popular. Allen, Diggs popular. Duvernay won't be popular. Pitts I think will be reasonably owned. Jets will be. It's just a good lineup. It's a good tournament lineup. That'll do it for this week. Hopefully, we're all quarter of a millionaires coming back to the show next week. Otherwise, we can roll the hopeful winnings into the following week. But thank you for watching. See you next time.
Like and subscribe.